Hi, I'm Ryan Glover with Glover Nursery, and we're going to show you how to plant a tree. So right here we're doing a hedge of junipers. These are balled and burlap, but the planting technique is very similar for containers or balled and burlap. So since this is a hedge, they all need to be spaced equally, so we'll measure that out where we want to put the tree. I just have a little hole right there to mark the center of my plant. If you're planting just a tree or shrub on itself, it's not as critical usually for the spacing. So on plants, you want to dig the hole wider than the root ball. So one thing you can do is just lay your shovel there to where you have the width of the root ball that you want. Gauge it that way. Take it across. See how wide you need to start your hole. That's one way to do it. I usually can just eyeball it for myself, but I usually just mark a little spot on the ground for how I'm going to dig the hole, just because that's how I like to do it. The next thing as far as planting is the depth of the hole. You don't want to plant it any deeper than it is right now, and a lot of times on balled and burlap stuff, there's some excess soil on top of the root ball from the digging process, so you definitely don't want to plant these any deeper than they are. I'm going to shoot for about right here and then clean off the top, so it's at the right depth. So as far as right now, we'll just start digging the hole. Here's easy because we can just place the soil around the hole. If you're planting in a lawn or a finished bed that has bark or rock, you'll need a tarp or something like that to keep it clean as you go, or you're going to have a second job of cleaning up after yourself when you're done. So hold on to your seats. We're going to dig the hole. So something that'll come up when you're planting plants in your yard is irrigation lines like we have here. You have a couple options. One is to reroute the line around your plant, and the second is to move the plant on one side or the other. We're not going to do either of those here because this line is dead now, or we rerouted the entire line, so this can be cut and moved. But one thing when you're doing landscaping, planting plants, just because you can put a plant somewhere, until you dig in the ground, you don't know what's exactly there. So you always have to leave room for some adjustment because you might have to move the plant depending on what's in the ground. What else you could do if you're on a planting project and working with other people is if you find a pipe like this or something in the ground, just pretend to mess with it for a while they do the work, and you just stare at the pipe, kind of jiggle it, and then you could get away with planting a little less than the other guys. Okay, so now we have the hole dug out for the tree. If you're not comfortable eyeballing the depth, which takes a little practice, one thing you can do is throw something straight across the hole, whatever you have handy. Doesn't really matter what it is. And then just take your shovel, place it next to the root ball. Just measure the depth you want, which for me is about right at the top of this piece of tape here. Check it right there. So we're pretty much right on where we want to be depth wise. So that's an easy way to check before you roll the tree in the hole, especially if you're doing a balled and burlap or a really big heavy tree, because to adjust that after it's in the hole is, more difficult. The container plant, it's much more easy to adjust, but you just want to easy way to check, make sure you're deep enough before you roll it in. So the next step is putting it in the hole. So on the balled and burlap trees, it's easier just to roll it. And then you just get it to the edge of the hole, slide her in. And then on the trees, balled and burlap or any trees, you want to maneuver as much as you can with the root ball, not the top of the tree. So with the twine and things on the root ball, you want to maneuver that to straighten the tree up and place it rather than yank on the tree, because it's not good for it. So as far as the depth we have, that looks pretty good. We got the crown a little bit above the soil line like we want it. This could actually even come up a little bit higher with the excess soil that we have. But right there looks pretty good. Then we'll just true it up, make sure it's straight and turned in all directions like the client wants, and go from there. So now we have the tree placed and trued up how we want it. And the next step is to remove the twine that's around the trunk especially, and then the upper part of the burlap. So we'll go ahead and do that now. Like I said, sometimes on these bald and burlap trees, during the handling process, sometimes you can get a little bit of excess soil on top of the root ball that you don't really need. So sometimes I'll just take and just be careful, you know, peel a little bit of it off just to flatten it out a little bit. But you're not, just a really gentle motion, you're not cutting anything. Make sure you don't want to ding the trunk, pull it away from the trunk with your hands rather than do it. And it's not always necessary. This one just had a little bit of excess soil that we didn't really need. So just something to be aware of. It doesn't need to be done every time, but you know, just to keep an eye out for. So now we're ready. One thing we're going to do here is just amend the soil a little bit. The soil here is pretty good, so we don't need to do too much, but just a little bit to help break it up. You don't want to do more than 30%. But like I said, here we have good soil, so I'm not too worried about it. Well, let's do a little bit. We'll save the rest of it to put on top. That's actually the most beneficial for the tree. Okay, so now we're gonna backfill the tree. One thing just to help yourself is face the tree and shovel the dirt towards it. Don't stand here and shovel this way, or stand here and turn. It's just, if you're planting a lot of stuff, it'll make you really tired really fast. If you just go straight forward, just one motion. So not a big deal, but just if you're going to be working all day long, it makes you less tired at the end of the day. Okay, now I need holes. So now we have the tree backfilled. You can see I just put all the excess soil up around the tree. It's not going to stay there. The reason for that is you need to water the tree in the first time really deeply to get all the air pockets and settle all the soil. So what we do is take your hose, garden hose. That's a little too strong. You want it to be about right like that. And then just take it right in the soil, right at the edge of the root ball, stick it in, and just let it run. And what will happen is you'll see it in a minute, is it'll fill up that void, and the soil will just start to sink in and settle down in around the root ball. So a lot of people will see landscapers, they'll do their house and they'll stomp on it with their feet. It's actually worse for the tree because you're not going to compact the soil that much, and you're actually going to cause problems at the top. So this is the way my Uncle Bryce taught me how to do it, so I just do that way so he doesn't yell at me. But it works really good. So typically what you can do if you're planting a bunch of stuff, if you have the hose on low enough, you can just stick it in, water a tree, keep working on the next one, and just as you go, you don't have to stop and water all of them, or stop every time to water it in. But you know, this is how you really get stuff settled in. And then that way too, the root ball will kind of settle, and then you can still adjust the tree because the tree's probably going to move a little bit, and then have good wet soil that makes it easy to move it around. because you don't want to just yank on the tree to straighten it up. You need to do it from the root ball. So you just want to pull the soil back away from the trunk of the tree. You don't want anything piled up against that trunk. Mulch on top of the root ball to prevent moisture loss. It'll prevent some weeds from popping up. And a lot of university studies and things have shown it's really beneficial. It's typically what we have to do in Utah. So thanks for watching, and